Welcome back. You are totally crushing the where section. You are using a variety of different operators and using multiple conditions. Now, would you believe it, there are even more operators we can use? Today we are going to introduce more operators and continue to play around with multiple conditions in the where section. After today's lesson, you will be able to use the like and not like operator in the where section, the in and not in operator in the where section, and the is null and is not null operator in the where section. We are going to start with like. We use the operator like when we don't know the exact result we are looking for, or if we are looking for values that have a certain pattern of characters. To use the operator like, we have to use a special character that the database will understand. The character is a percentage sign, and it can stand in for the characters that you don't know or don't care what they are. So an example for using like and the percentage sign is if you knew you wanted to bring back all first names that started with the letter A. So you wouldn't necessarily care if the name was Angie or Adam. As long as the name started with A, you would want that data to be displayed in your result set. So the syntax would be where first name, like, single quote, A, percentage sign, end of single quote. Another example would be if you knew you were looking for values that ended in ing. You would put the percentage sign in front of the ing because you don't care what the value starts with. So like, percentage sign, ing. You can use more than one percentage sign following the like. So if you knew you wanted a certain character in the middle of the value, like a dash or other character, you could use 2 percentage signs around the character you know you want displayed, or you know you want a condition around. So let's do an example. So Cinderella is throwing a party to celebrate her name starting with the letter C. She is going to invite all subjects who also have a first name that starts with the letter C. So the query would look something like this. Select first name, last name, address, where first name, like C, percentage sign, and active subject equals yes. We only care about the first letter of the subject's name equaling C, and we don't care about whatever follows that first letter. And the result set would look something like this. Notice we have a lot of subject sets. First name starts with the letter C. The next operator we are going to talk about is in. This is a fun one because it can simplify how many conditions you would have to write if you were looking for a column to equal multiple values. So let's pretend you wanted to return columns that equaled the values x, y, or z. You could write a separate condition for each value and string them together by or. So where a column equals x, or column equals y, or column equals z. Instead of all of these equal to conditions separated by or, you could simply use the in operator. The syntax is simply column name, in, followed by parentheses, followed by the values separated by a comma. If the column is a text data type or date data type, the values would need to have single quotes around them. If the column was a number data type, the values would not need to have single quotes around them. Let's look at an example to make it clearer. So in June, Cinderella wants to throw a barbecue, but instead of a standard barbecue, she wants to throw a barbecue and invites subjects with a name that is related to Bob. So she wants to invite subjects whose name is Bob, or Robert, or Bobby, or Rob. So she could write the query like so. Select first name, last name, address from subjects where active subject equals yes, and parentheses to separate out these conditions. First name equals Bob, or first name equals Robert, or first name equals Bobby, or first name equals Rob. We would have 4 separate conditions just to identify people whose name was kind of similar to Bob. Or we could do it a bit differently. We could select first name, last name, address from subjects where active subject equals yes, and first name in Bob, Robert, Bobby, Rob. Result sets for both queries would look like this. So it looks like we have a lot of Bobs and Roberts and Bobbies in the kingdom. So the next operator to talk about is is null. Null is what happens when data has not been populated in a row under a certain column. We'll take a look at an example to make it clearer. For instance, let's say a subject was entered into the database subjects table by the data entry dwarfs. The dwarfs had almost all of the information, but they were missing the subject's address. Rather than not entering in the information, they just left the address blank and submitted the rest of the information. You can see on the fairy godmother's profile there is no address populating the spot for address. In the table, this row would be filled out, except there would not be any value in the address column. So if Cinderella wanted to identify subjects who were missing data in a certain column, she could use the Is Null Operator. The query would look something like this. Select first name, last name, address from subjects where address is null. Our result set would look something like this. It is pulling back all subject first and last names and address where nothing has been populated in these subjects row under the address column. So they look all like blank rows. The next group of operators are basically the opposite of what we talked about in the previous slides. In some cases, we would only want to return data that is not null, or not like, or not in. We'll look at an example and then you'll get more practice in the activity. So as an example, after Cinderella had her party for subjects whose first name started with the letter C, she also wanted to throw a party for all of the subjects whose first name did not start with the letter C. Cinderella could write a query where she said subject first name like A, or subject first name like B, or subject first name like D, or subject first name like E, and so on. So she'd have 25 lines of conditions. Or, much easier, she could write a query where she said subject first name not like C %. Only one condition. She would get a result set that was the same for both queries, where no subject first name started with the letter C. And this same premise holds true for the other operators. You could use is not null if you wanted to return rows where that column was not blank, or you could use not in if you had a list of values that you did not want the rows to be in. So you know now how to use even more operators in the where section. Time for some practice and then on to the next lesson where we step up our game again and learn how to add functions to our SQL queries.